Throughout history, people have vanished under strange and unexplained circumstances, leaving behind only questions and eerie coincidences. And in this video, we'll explore 4 baffling cases of individuals who stepped into the unknown and some of whom never returned. Crime, conspiracy, cults, serial killers, and murder. All things that I love to consume, and I know you do too. You sweet, delectable, cherry on top, beautiful little crispy cake, I'm kind of hungry, intellectual freak. And today we're talking about just that. People who have disappeared, some of which reappeared, but most of which have not. So without further ado, let's unbuckle our seatbelts, go Mach 5 down the highway, slam on the brakes, and bust through this windshield into these baffling disappearance cases together. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a verdant expanse straddling the border of Tennessee and North Carolina, is renowned for its breathtaking beauty. And in autumn, a symphony of colors paints the landscape as deciduous trees prepare for a winter slumber. Mist often cloaks the valley and peaks, lending an air of mystery to the ancient Appalachian Range. Despite its beauty, it also carries unseen dangers, with steep ravines, dense underbrush, and twisting pathways that could make any hiker overwhelmed. At a crisp 50 to 70 degrees in September, it was in this captivating setting that Thelma Paulie Melton found her second home. Born on February 26, 1923 in Alabama, Paulie was one of 6 children born to Fred and Luella. And those who knew her described Paulie as friendly, intelligent, and generous, with a particular affinity for the outdoors and hiking. Sounds like a good time. And her life had taken her through various roles and relationships. She had worked as a teacher and had been twice divorced before marrying Bob Melton in 1975. And Bob, who was 20 years her senior, became her companion in both life and their shared love for the Smoky Mountains. And for most of the year, Paulie and Bob resided in Jacksonville, Florida. However, each autumn, they would make their pilgrimage to the Deep Creek campground near the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And for over 2 decades, their Airstream trailer had served as their seasoned abode, allowing them to immerse themselves in a natural splendor they both cherished deeply. And this annual journey had become a defining aspect of their life together, a tradition that both spoke to their mutual appreciation for the wilderness. So just a wholesome as couple. And Paulie's connection to the area extended beyond mere visitation. She had actually become an integral part of the local community, dedicating her time as a volunteer to the Bryson Presbyterian Nutrition Center. And her commitment was unwavering. She served meals to the elderly residents and, according to reports, never missed a day of work. And this level of dedication just spoke volumes about Paulie's character and her desire to contribute meaningfully to other people's lives. But despite the apparent tranquility of her life, there were subtle indications of underlying complexities. For undisclosed reasons, Paulie was restricted from driving alone, a limitation that may have impacted her sense of independence. And additionally, following her mother's death in 1977, Paulie had experienced a period of depression. And by 1981, however, reports suggested that her emotional state had improved. So on September 25th, 1981, Paulie had made the uncharacteristic decision to forego her volunteer work at the nutrition center. And instead, she would embark on a hike along with her friends on the Deep Creek Trail. And this day would be beautiful, providing ideal conditions for hiking. And Paulie, being 58 years old at the time, was feeling good. She hiked all the time, and she was confident that she could make this hike with her friends. And it wasn't like an advanced hike, it was a pretty casual hike for her. But before departing for her hike, Paulie had prepared spaghetti sauce for dinner, indicating she did have plans to come back that evening with her husband, Bob. So the hike would begin, and it would begin kind of uneventfully, with Paulie initially walking pretty slowly, and her companions would kind of tease her about her pace. So Paulie would kind of pick up the pace to keep up with her friends. And she would actually start to pass her friends, moving slightly ahead of them. And at approximately 4 p.m., Paulie walked over the hill and kind of out of sight, so her friends couldn't see her. But this mundane occurrence would mark the last time that anyone would ever see Paulie again. So when Paulie failed to reappear, her friends initially assumed that she had maintained her brisk pace and would be waiting for them at the trailhead. However, upon reaching their destination, they found no sight of her. The initial confusion quickly escalated into alarm, and at 4:30 p.m., Paulie's friends returned to the campsite, hoping to find her there. But to their dismay, Bob reported that he had not seen Paulie since they had left for their hike.
It was such a shock that she simply disappeared. This trail where she disappeared was considered easy. She could not possibly have gotten lost.
And as concerns started to mount, Paulie was officially reported missing at 6 p.m. that same day, prompting an immediate and extensive search effort. So the authorities would close the trail to the public for 4 days. And the search would involve 150 personnel and 9 canine teams, who meticulously combed approximately 100 miles of trails, creeks, and dense forest. And despite the thoroughness of the search, no definitive signs of Paulie were discovered. The only potential lead emerged when search dogs detected Paulie's scent on a downed tree along the trail. However, park rangers would just kind of dismiss this as a significant clue, reasoning that she had likely just stopped to rest there. And the lack of any substantial evidence posed a perplexing challenge for the investigators. And as days would pass with no breakthrough, law enforcement began to consider alternative scenarios. So the possibility of foul play was deemed unlikely, given the brief window of time between Paulie's last sighting and her companion's realization of her absence. So it seemed implausible that an abduction could occur quietly in such a well-traveled area. And one theory stated that she had actually planned to meet someone in the park to be picked up, to escape in secret and create a new life, which just seems kind of weird. I mean, she made spaghetti sauce before she left, you know? She was probably planning to go back to make pasta. I don't know.
My theory is, and it's simply a theory, I have no proof, that she arranged to be met at a crossroad there in the park and be picked up. Theory is that she deliberately was tired of the stress with her sick husband and that she just decided to make a new life.
So on October 2nd, 1981, park officials made a startling announcement. They indicated that evidence suggested Paulie had exited the park in a vehicle, likely of her own volition. And this theory was bolstered by the fact that most of Paulie's belongings, including her medication, identification, money, and purse, were left behind at the campsite. And park ranger Dennis Barnett articulated this prevailing view, quote unquote, "If she had been in the park, the dogs would have found her. They were well trained." And this statement underscored the growing suspicion that Paulie's disappearance might have been intentional rather than the result of a tragic accident or criminal act. But to me, it's just, I mean, I didn't know her personally, but it just seems strange, very strange. And I think it makes less sense that she left all of her belongings behind, like money, purse, everything, and just left. So, but what do I know? You know? But despite extensive search efforts and ongoing investigations, Thelma Paulie Melton's disappearance remains unsolved. And the case just continues to perplex authorities and captivate the public's imagination. And the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, once a sanctuary for Paulie, now stands as a silent witness to her enigmatic vanishing. And now Paulie's case has just become part of the local lore, periodically resurfacing in the headlines and sparking renewed interest. And modern search and rescue technology, unavailable in 1981, offer tantalizing possibilities of what might have been discovered had they existed at the time. That as years pass, Paulie's family and friends continue to seek closure, while her disappearance endures as one of the park's most enduring mysteries. So I'm curious what you guys think down below, but I hope that Paulie is one day found. And that brings us to our next disappearance. The rugged wilderness of Arapahoe National Forest stretches across north-central Colorado, a vast expanse of towering peaks and dense pine forests. And here, the air is crisp and the wind carries whispers through the trees. Sudden storms roll in without warning, draping the mountains with thick fog and plunging temperatures in an instant. It's a land that both awes and humbles, a place where nature's beauty is matched only by its indifference. And nestled along the edge of the unforgiving landscape is Silver Plume, a tiny, historic mining town where everyone knows their neighbor. And among the town's few dozen residents was Tom Young, a quiet man who found solace in books. And he actually ran a small bookstore in town, a cozy retreat where worn pages whispered stories of adventures, mystery, and history. And in the weeks leading up to his disappearance, those closest to Young noticed a shift in his demeanor. Once reserved but content, he now seemed restless and distracted, and his friends just couldn't quite place what was wrong. But the change was undeniable. Then, on September 7th, 1987, Young left a note behind stating that he was traveling to Europe. He was heading into the mountains, but he didn't say where, and his only companion on this journey was Gus, who was his loyal golden retriever dog. So days would pass with no one seeing him, and then weeks, and the town whispered and speculated and hoped. But Young and Gus never returned. And 11 months later, on July 31st, 1988, two hunters trekking along the steep inclines of the Republican Mountains stumbled upon something grim. There, among the pine needles and loose shale, lay skeletal remains of Tom Young, and Gus was right beside him. And a revolver rested nearby. During the investigation, it was found that Tom had purchased the gun only a few days before he departed on this hike. And the Clear Creek County Sheriff's Department examined the scene, and soon after, the coroner ruled Young's death a sewer slide. But not everyone was convinced. Young's friends and family rejected the notion that he would ever take his own life, especially not with Gus by his side. And even more troubling was the discovery that Young had purchased the revolver only 4 days before vanishing, a detail that raised more questions than answers, really. And then there was the bullet. The one lodged in Young's skull was either never subjected to ballistics testing or produced inconclusive results, leaving a crucial piece of evidence in limbo. And in the wake of Tom Young's disappearance, Silver Plume, Colorado transformed from a tranquil mountain hamlet into a town shrouded in mystery. And the once friendly atmosphere had given way to an undercurrent of tension, with locals exchanging wary glances and speaking in hushed tones about this unsolved case. But wait, there's more. Update! Just kidding. But this leads into the disappearance of Keith Reinhard. And it was during this time in Silver Plume, before the body of Tom was found, but during the time he was missing, that Keith Reinhard arrived in June 1988. He was a sports writer for the Daily Herald in Arlington Heights, Illinois, near Chicago. And Reinhard had convinced his initially reluctant wife, Carolyn, to support his 90-day leave absence. And his goal was to pursue his dream of writing a novel. And he believed this quiet, scenic beauty of Silver Plume would provide the perfect backdrop for his creative endeavors while he was on sabbatical, leaving his wife and children at home. But he wasn't alone in town. Keith's childhood friend, Ted Parker, ran a cafe in town. They'd grown up across the street from one another, and they grew up kind of like brothers more so than friends, giving him someone he could actually socialize with when he got bored in such a sleepy little town. And it also makes sense why he just chose this random town, because he actually knew somebody that lived there. And Keith would also open an antique shop in town to give him something else to do while he was there writing his book. And with his keen interest in photography, he sold matted photos there as well. And his antique shop was located in a building that had been abandoned. And the reason that it had been abandoned was that the previous occupant had disappeared. This is a weird town. I don't like it, man. I don't like it. But who was it that disappeared? This was the same bookstore where Tom Young's bookstore had been located. Cursed bookstore, cursed antique store. I'm saying it here first. So finding out the store that you had ran had been occupied recently by someone who went missing was sure to be fascinating. And Keith must have thought so too, because he now had the perfect topic for his novel he wanted to write. And this wasn't just a casual interest in Tom Young's disappearance. Keith's time became solely focused on it, to the point where it became his obsession. And the main character of his book, Guy Gibson, was a character who was molded as a combination of both Tom Young and Keith himself. Perhaps Keith dreamed of being the one to discover what happened to Tom Young as well. Perhaps solve the mystery that had left the town completely puzzled, and inspire the perfect ending to his book. Unfortunately, we know what happened to Tom Young, and eventually Keith would learn too. So we know that Tom was found July 31st, 1988, and Keith was roughly 2 months into his stay at Silver Plume, Colorado at this point. And he supposedly attended Tom's memorial service on August 3rd, 4 days after the body was found. And 4 days after that, Keith would go missing as well. Perhaps Keith was heartbroken or disillusioned with how unceremonious the end had been for Tom Young. But the thing about Keith's disappearances, however, is that he announced it in a way. At 4 p.m. that day, he told his buddy Ted and his friends that he was going on a hike to the top of Pendleton Mountain.
That was the last time I saw him.
And the hike to the top of that mountain takes around 6 hours. And due to this detail, his claim was taken seriously. So Keith would pack up and go on his hike, and a day would go by and his friends would notice he wasn't back. So a massive search would be conducted. So hundreds and hundreds of people got involved trying to locate him by land and by air. And this town that was looking for Tom Young was now looking for another man, and it was just a town of despair at this point. So people were searching day and night, and they would clock up 10,000 man-hours just looking.
Have many with him to leave behind.
And during the search, one of the planes that was actually looking for Keith would crash land and kill the pilot, which would lead for the search to completely end on August 14th. These cases are just riddled with bad luck. I don't know what it is, but it's just horrible. So the search was done, and the mystery of where Keith had gone still remains. And the screen to the computer Keith had actually been writing his book on was actually left on after he left. And the last words he had ever written for his novel could be seen plainly. Some may interpret that to believe that Keith may have taken his own life just like Tom. But it does have a ring of familiarity to a poem that Keith had written also during this time in Silver Plume, though exactly when we can't be certain, but the poem goes as such. Oh God, I want to wander. I want to wander till I die, with the mountains as my living room, my only roof, the sky. So perhaps Keith was just troubled, and the ghosts of his sorrow are what we see on the page. And if he really did just want to wander until he died, perhaps he got what he wished for. But either way, it's just three very tragic stories, including the pilot, and I don't know if we'll ever know what actually happened to Keith. And that brings us to our next disappearance. The Grand Canyon, a colossal chasm carved by the relentless forces of the Colorado River, stood as a formidable challenge to explorers in the 1920s. The sheer magnitude, the steep cliffs plunging over a mile deep and stretching 277 miles long, created an environment both awe-inspiring and treacherous. And the region encompassing parts of the Kaibab National Forest in northern Arizona presented a landscape of stark contrast, from the scorching heat of the canyon floor to the frigid temperatures of the higher elevations. This wasn't its only challenge, as it was known to be a frequently visited place by tourists looking to go rafting and boating, and certain areas were safer than others, as they are today. However, a couple looking to do more than just enjoy a casual whitewater rafting trip, rather, they wanted something more impressive. So in this unforgiving terrain, Glenn and Bessie Hyde embarked on an ambitious journey in 1928. Glenn, who was born on December 9th, 1898, possessed prior rafting experience and a spirit for adventure. And he had traveled along this river multiple times and understood its bumps and grooves. And Bessie, who was born on December 29th, 1905, was newer to such expeditions but equally determined. And the newlyweds just shared a common goal: to navigate the entirety of the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, with Bessie aiming to become the first documented woman to accomplish this feat. And their preparation for the journey was meticulous. Glenn constructed a 20-foot wooden sweep scow, a flat-bottomed boat designed to withstand tumultuous rapids of Colorado, and this vessel, which he named Rain in the Face, sick name, would serve as their home and sole means of transportation through the treacherous waters. And the couple's confidence in their abilities and equipment was evident as they set out on October 20th, 1928 from Green River, Utah. So as they set sail and headed deeper and deeper into the canyon, the landscape would transform around them. The once placid river gradually revealed its true nature, with increasingly turbulent rapids testing the Hyde's skills and resolve. And Bessie's diary entries that were later recovered provided glimpses glimpses into their experiences. She wrote of the breathtaking beauty surrounding them, with towering cliffs painted in hues of red and gold, the ever-changing play of light and shadows across the canyon walls, and the raw power of the river beneath their boat. The journey, however, was not without its challenges. The Colorado River, known for its unpredictable nature, presented a series of dangerous rapids that required expert navigation, and the couple's progress were closely monitored by observers along their route, with their last confirmed sighting being on November 18, 1928, near the Bright Angel Trail. And at this point, they had successfully traversed some of the most challenging sections of the river through Labyrinth, Stillwater, and Cataract Canyons. Completely unscathed, by the way, and appeared to be in good spirits, confident in their ability to complete the remaining portion of their journey, according to bystanders. But the subsequent events remained shrouded in mystery, because when the Hydes failed to emerge from the canyon as expected, search parties would be organized. And the discovery of their intact boat with all their supplies aboard only deepened the enigma surrounding their disappearance. And as the days just turned into weeks without any sign of Glenn and Bessie Hyde, the Grand Canyon's imposing silence seemed to mock the efforts of those searching for the missing couple. And the last known sighting, as we know, was on November 18th, 1928, at that Bright Angel Trail. And Emery Kolb, a renowned photographer and boatman, captured their image and engaged in conversation with the couple. And Kolb reportedly cautioned them about their impending winter weather and the dangers that lay ahead. And witnesses recall Bessie actually expressing hesitation about their journey. But Glenn was just driven with determination and perhaps a touch hubris, and insisted that they press on. So it's sounding like somebody didn't want to do something and somebody wanted to do something, and we have an issue. But the Hydes would continue their descent along the Colorado River. So authorities would initiate aerial surveys along the river's course, hoping to spot any sign of the missing adventurers or their distinctive craft. And as we know, they found it. And the boat itself showed no signs of damage or struggle, appearing as if the couple had just simply stepped off the boat momentarily. And the personal belongings remained untouched as well, suggesting a sudden or unexpected departure. And the absence of footprints or campsites or trails in the vicinity provided no clues as to what possible direction they could have even gone on. So as the search continued, investigators just grappled with the perplexing lack of evidence. And the boat's condition ruled out any immediate catastrophic event, while the presence of the belongings seemed to preclude the deliberate abandonment of the expedition. They seemingly just up and disappeared out of nowhere. It's as if the Grand Canyon quite literally swallowed them up. So over the years, the disappearance of the Hydes became the subject of intense speculation and numerous investigations. And rumors would circulate, some claiming Bessie had actually survived and assumed a new identity, while others suggested more sinister fates. Occasionally, tips from alleged sightings tantalized investigators, but ultimately led nowhere, each potential lead dissolving under scrutiny. And recent advancements in technology have offered new avenues for exploration in the decade-old mystery, like LiDAR mapping of the Grand Canyon has revealed previously undetected cave systems along the Colorado River, some potentially accessible during the Hydes era. And these findings present intriguing possibilities for explaining how two experienced adventurers could have vanished so completely out of nowhere. And furthermore, our understanding of the canyon's hydrology has evolved since 1928, obviously. While the powerful currents of the Colorado River were once considered the primary threat of the river to river expeditions, we now recognize the deadly potential for flash floods from tributary canyons. And changing climate patterns altered the frequency and intensity of these events since the Hydes' time, potentially shedding new light on the circumstances of their disappearance. And as the mystery of Glenn and Bessie Hyde approaches its centennial, it continues to captivate the imaginations of adventurers and historians alike. So the disappearance of Glenn and Bessie Hyde remains one of the Grand Canyon's most enduring mysteries. Despite extensive searches and investigations, their fate continues to elude explanation. And the couple is officially listed as missing and presumed dead, with their abandoned boat just serving as a haunting testament to their final journey. And the Hyde story has captured public imagination for nearly a century, inspiring numerous books, documentaries, and speculative theories. And as technology advances, new possibilities for solving the mystery may emerge. But until then, we don't know. We don't know where they are. Hopefully it gets solved one day. But until then, let's move on to our final disappearance. In the heart of northwest Arkansas, nestled within the embrace of the Ozark National Forest, lies Devil's Den State Park, a captivating expanse of natural wonder. The park's thick woodlands stretch across the landscape, their verdant canopy providing shelter to a diverse ecosystem. And Devil's Den State Park has long been a popular destination for those seeking respite from the bustle of everyday life. Families, outdoor enthusiasts, and nature lovers are drawn to its scenic beauty and myriad of recreational opportunities. However, beneath this veneer of tranquility lies a landscape that can be treacherous for the unprepared or unwary. I don't know how you can't be wary with a name like Devil's Den. That just screams don't enter, but that's just me anyway. But the park's geography presents unique challenges, with steep hills and rocky terrain that can confound even experienced hikers who stray from marked paths. Dense forest, obscure sightlines, making it very easy for someone to become disoriented. And the numerous crevices, sinkholes, and hidden caverns that riddle the area add an element of unpredictability to a venture off the beaten path. Won't catch me there. Are you kidding me? Sinkholes? Crevices? What? No. And these features, while part of the park's allure, also complicate search and rescue efforts when visitors find themselves in distress. And it was against this natural backdrop of beauty and latent danger that the Van Alst family arrived at Devil's Den State Park in June 1946. And like many families in the area, they were drawn by the promise of outdoor adventure and quality time together as a family, away from the demands of daily life. And among the Van Alst children was 8-year-old Catherine, a very spirited and independent girl, and Catherine just loved the outdoors, but that kind of made her ignorant to the hazards that lurked in the wilderness around her. Which, fair enough, she's 8 years old. No 8-year-old's thinking about all the sinkholes and crevasses, you know? So as the family settled into their campsite, there was no indication that their idyllic vacation was about to take a dramatic and terrifying turn. So on this day, the family had been enjoying the park's amenities, with the children playing near the campsite under the watchful eye of their parents. And Catherine, in particular, had been drawn to the nearby creek. And it was here, in a moment of distraction, that the unthinkable would occur. Catherine would vanish from sight, slipping away into the vast wilderness that surrounded them. Her 2 brothers thought no different and were not worried, continuing to fish. Classic brothers. And later, they would realize that something was wrong, and they would immediately tell their parents once they actually realized something was up and Catherine wasn't actually around anymore. And the realization that Catherine was missing hit the Van Alst family with the force of a physical blow. What had moments before been a scene of familial joy transformed instantly into one of panic. And the parents' initial hope was that Catherine had simply just hidden herself or wandered a short distance away and that they'd be able to find her shortly. But that just was not the case, and they would alert park authorities. And as hours turned into days, the search intensified. Bloodhounds were brought in to track Catherine's scent, their noses pressed to the ground as they navigated the challenging terrain. Steep hills, hidden crevices, and thick undergrowth impeded their progress, while the numerous caves and sinkholes offered countless places where a small child could potentially be hidden from view. So just like a parent's absolute fucking nightmare. Like, I can't even imagine. And the search would expand beyond the park's boundaries into the surrounding Ozark National Forest. Aircraft were deployed to provide an aerial perspective, scanning the vast wilderness for any sign of the missing girl. And weather conditions would add another layer of complexity to their rescue efforts. The risk of rain loomed, threatening to wash away potential tracks or scents that could lead them to Catherine. And nighttime temperatures dropped, raising concerns about hypothermia for a young girl who was exposed to the elements. And as each day pressed without success, hope among the searchers began to wane. And on the 6th day of the search, when optimism had all but evaporated, a breakthrough occurred. Catherine would be discovered in a cave, alive, approximately 7 miles from their starting point, from where she initially went missing. And the location of her discovery raised immediate questions, as the area had been searched multiple times by both air and grounds teams. So how had she remained undetected for so long? Catherine's condition upon discovery was equally perplexing. Despite Catherine's ordeal, she appeared remarkably calm and composed, just a stoic of a child. And when called by the search party, she reportedly responded with a simple, "Here I am." like the ultimate game of hide and seek. What? And her clothes showed minimal signs of wear or dirt, defying expectations from someone who had spent nearly a week in the wilderness, trekking 7 miles. At most, she was covered in bug bites, but otherwise in very good health, thank God. And the young girl's survival story quickly captured public attention. Reports indicated that Catherine had sustained herself by eating berries and drinking from small water sources found along her journey, like Bear Grylls who, you know? And even more astonishing was the revelation that she had traversed an estimated 30 miles of rugged terrain barefoot. As I know I said 7 miles, but with how much she moved around to get to that point, it was 30 miles barefoot. What? Again, Bear Grylls who, you know? So how in the hell could this young girl climb a zigzag path across rocks and hills and end up this far away from her starting point? And there are many theories, some of which are like supernatural and Bigfoot and weird and all the things that I love, honestly. But I mean, the most logical one is that she's just a little badass who just went for a really long walk and then got found and is quite literally my hero. Like, absolutely crazy. And why she walked off in the first place, we don't really know either. But after her disappearance and after being found, authorities implemented enhanced visitor education programs to better inform families about potential dangers in wilderness areas. High five, good job. So whatever you think down below, I'm curious to hear, but I personally think it was aliens, probably, or Bigfoot. I don't know. That is it for this video. I know you guys have been asking for more missing persons videos, unsolved cases. I like going over them, bringing them back to light. I feel like it might do something, which is cool. But if you have any other ideas for these videos, let me know down below. I love reading your guys' comments. Also, grab some SourBoys if you want. If you want a little sweet, sweet candy after this somewhat salty video, go to sour.gg, grab yourself a little sweet treat. And yeah, until then, I will see your beautiful face in the next video. All right?